Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Flynn, and I'm here with
Scott Lang,
and we are the Band Dads. Here to bring you a podcast about something that we care very dearly about, which is music education and band.
Some of you are here because you want to learn about all things band. Some of you are here because you want to see a train wreck, and the answer is yes to both of those. We don't care why you're here. We're going to answer all the questions. We're going to say the things you're thinking. We're going to debunk all the myths.
Yep. This is the Band Dads Podcast.
The podcast by and for confused band parents.
Nice. I said the tagline. Hey everyone, welcome to the Band Dads Podcast. Band Dad Chris here. Normally Scott and I are coming to you from what I like to call the Scott Lang Library, but this episode is a little different. This time, we hit the road. We went from the heat of Phoenix to the chilly streets of New York City, traveling alongside our kids as their band and orchestra programs combined for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity at the legendary Carnegie Hall. And before we jump into it, I want to take a minute to talk about why trips like this matter so much. Traveling with a group like band or orchestra is one of the most valuable experiences a student can have. It's not just about the performance, it's about everything around it. It's the exposure to new places, new cultures, and new perspectives. It's learning how to navigate the world, how to problem solve, how to be independent, and how to function without mom and dad managing every little detail. Those are lessons you just can't replicate in a classroom or even on a rehearsal field. And that's exactly what this episode is about. The first segment you'll hear is Scott and me recording live on the streets of New York City. We're walking through 5th and 6th Avenue, eventually making our way into the heart of Times Square, talking about the trip, what it means, and why experiences like this are so impactful for students and programs alike. You'll also hear Scott share a really personal and meaningful moment he had on this trip, something I had the privilege to witness firsthand, and I can tell you, it was truly special to be a part of. Quick heads up, since we are literally navigating the hustle and energy of the city, there's a few moments where the street noise takes over, but honestly, that's part of what makes this so real. You're right there with us. Later in the episode, we're joined by a special guest, orchestra director John Gott, who was also on the trip. We asked him to come on and share his perspective, especially because he had to navigate something every traveling parent thinks about. What happens when something goes wrong? And in this case, it did. John walks us through how his group handled a major travel challenge and, more importantly, how they got everyone home safely. It's a story that's equal parts stressful, insightful, and ultimately reassuring. So thank you for being here with us on this unique episode where we truly show we are band dads all the time, no matter where we are. And now, let's take you to the corner of 5th Avenue and 50th Street in Manhattan.
We are stuck in a subway station. We are lost in New York
We're not
City.
even a subway station. We're in a shopping center underground.
Two grown men.
The subway would at least be an excuse.
Every woman right now is like, yep, that's true of every man.
Listen, I found my way from the Newark airport through the train stations through the subways to get here, so I don't know how we can get lost under Rockefeller Center.
But we did.
Where are we right now, Scott Lang?
Oh my God. It is a beautiful day in New York City where we have traveled. And we just finished a tour of 30 Rock Center, where we're traveling with our Fine Arts Department Band Orchestra and Choir to perform at Carnegie Hall on Monday night.
Yep. Yeah, that was a good time. Scott invited me along with the family to do the NBC tour. So that was fun. We got to do the NBC studio tour, which was a good time. We had two awesome, what are they called? I don't remember what they were.
Docents. It's pages. They were pages.
Pages, thank you. Pages, Maddie and Jake, right? What were their names?
Yeah, I believe that was
okay,
correct.
Sweet. I score. I remember their names.
So this is an episode about travel.
Okay.
And so I'm Scott Lang and
Chris Flynn.
And we're the
Band Dads.
As we mentioned, we're walking through literally Fifth Avenue in New York City, some of the most expensive real estate on the planet.
With any luck, you could actually hear behind us that there is, in fact, a city behind us.
Are likely to get hit by a car. But I want to start with this, Chris. Your daughter's a junior.
Yes.
So just in 3 years, I want you to tell me all of the places that your daughter has traveled. And you can even include, let's say, Dayton, where our program traveled, but your daughter didn't. Can you name all of the places?
Can I name all of them?
Yeah,
so
can you
let's
do it?
see. Freshman year would have been, I believe, Flagstaff, Arizona. And then that was the year that we went and did the Pearl Harbor Parade. So we did go to Oahu. We went to Honolulu. I think those were really the only two trips that I recall freshman year. But obviously Hawaii was a big one, right?
Okay.
So it's not like you take a lot of side trips when you're going to Hawaii, because that in itself is quite an undertaking.
Absolutely. So sophomore year, which was last year, the group went to?
Again, well, no, sophomore year was 2 years ago. She said, well, I guess that was last year, technically.
Yeah.
Year before last. My voice is correct. So that would have been, let's see, where did we go? We went to San Antonio that year,
Yep.
right? We went to San Antonio.
We also went to Flagstaff again.
We did it with Flagstaff last year. And then we also, well, that would have been 2 years ago. I think that's all that I remember from that year, to be honest.
And the drumline went to?
Last year?
Dayton.
I guess that's true, yeah.
They went to WGI.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, fast forward to this year.
Okay.
Where have we been?
We have been so far this year to, we spent a few days in California. We were in Disneyland. We spent some time at Vista Murrieta as well, participating in
Right, so we're in Southern
WBA.
California with the marching band,
Correct.
and right now we're in?
New York City.
Yeah. So it's fair to say your daughter's traveling. Her passport has been active as a member of the band.
I would say that my family has a more enriched experience just socially because of my daughter being in band, yes.
So if you're listening to this right now, and this is our first ever live episode out in the streets.
That's true.
It's just amazing we're not being mobbed by all our fans. It really is just stunning.
It's close, but you know we're in disguise.
The
so.
way everyone pretends that we're not important is really impressive.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm sure there are a lot of people who are, you want a mystery meat hot dog right there, Chris?
I've passed several of these booths, and I'll tell you what, the smell is intriguing. I'm not going to lie.
There's a lot of intriguing
Yeah, there
smells
really
in
is.
New
There
York.
is.
Okay. There are probably a lot of parents who are saying, well, gosh, they must be in a bougie program. They can afford to travel to Hawaii 2 years ago, and they're traveling to New York City, and rumor on the street is we might be doing the London Day Parade in 2 years. And so to answer that, Chris, I don't think we're an overly affluent program.
No, not even a little bit, actually. We come from a very, I would say, a middle-class type of area where we live, but I think this speaks a lot to, well, there's two things. One, yes, the dedication of the parents themselves, and they understand how important it is and what everybody gets out of it, that they're willing to take on the cost, but this is also why your fundraising is really important, and you got to make sure you're really locked in on raising money for your program so you can afford to do things like this. Because the other thing that comes into play, at least for us, is the district does have a cap in terms of how much you can charge people for trips and fees and things
Our
like that.
district does, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of have to work around that as well, right? It's not like you can just charge each kid per trip. So. But yeah, the logistics to make this happen, and I, shout out to our incredible program and all the boosters and all, everybody in charge of that stuff, because stuff like this isn't possible without those people.
So you
that
said
structure.
the experience that these kids have, or the value of the trip. What do kids get out of traveling? And if you're a listener right now, I want you to hang tight for a minute, because I don't think the answer is going to be necessarily what you think it is or what the obvious answer is. Why travel, Chris?
Well, I think, Scott, you have to be able to. I don't know. I don't think you can fully be educated on the world and what it is until you actually get to go experience it and its cultures. And
is that the responsibility of a school music program to do that?
No. Responsibility, I would say no, not responsibility. But
opportunity?
Opportunity is huge, because I think you just get better, well-rounded people by giving them more experience and exposure to different cultures and societies.
Chris just said something that's really important. And he used A, culture, and B, experiences, because that's what I think it's all about. And I want to go back to the bougie question for just a second. If you think we're bougie, I would challenge any listener who's a part of a program that's struggling, part of a program that is underfunded, part of a program and what program isn't. I think travel's more important for those programs than it is for middle-class programs like ourselves or affluent programs.
Right.
Because, how many kids get on a plane Friday and it was their first flight ever?
It is a big deal for us, and I think so. Scott and I, kind of growing up on this side of the country, I think even maybe take it for granted a little bit that a place like New York kind of is the magic that it is. But it's because we've been here plenty of times. But people from the West Coast, people from Arizona, it's a much bigger deal to get here than it is just growing up a couple hours away from it. And so certainly it's a huge opportunity.
When I took my very first trip that I took a group on was, and we were in an underfunded area in South Phoenix, and we went to LA and we did a music festival. But the thing that the kids took away from was we went and saw Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
And that was when Phantom was all the rage. But these kids had never dressed up.
Okay.
Didn't know how to tie a tie. Had never been to a musical. And like to a middle class kid or an upper affluent kid, this is yet another trip, not their only trip, another experience, not their only experience. And as we stand under this street sign in the middle of Times Square getting mobbed, the thing is, that's the thing I want to stress. So number one is travel's more important the less affluent you are. And I think you have to stretch to get there. But the other thing is, I think travel's about experiences. Yeah. I don't think it's about the contest that we got to go to. Right. It's about performing down Main Street.
Right. No, I agree. And I don't think the idea for travel has to be New York City or bust, right? This just happened to be an opportunity. And to be honest, I think the opportunity even became an opportunity because we teamed up with, other fine arts programs in our school, right? So just the band coming to New York by itself, I think would have been a huge undertaking. But we're also here with our orchestra and our choir programs. So being able to pull those three groups together gave us a little more power to make a trip like this. So anyway, you've talked about before, celebrate your wins. A win doesn't have to be Times Square, right? The win can be any trip that really
creates an experience.
Correct.
And it was
Inject
interesting because we got to go and work with Vista Murrieta, top 12 program in this country. And I said something on the podcast. I put something on Slack, and I put, trust me when I say, the best part of this trip was working with that organization. And one of the band moms, Becky, pulled me aside after the podcast and said, I thought you were full of bunk. Yeah. These kids are going to contests, they're going to win, they're going to Disneyland, they're playing a Main Street parade. And she said, sure enough, when I asked my kid what was the best part of California, he said, working with Vista Murrieta.
Yeah.
The experience.
Right, absolutely.
You can't replicate, as we stand here at 7th Avenue and 42nd Street, you can't replicate this experience in a photo.
It's very true.
In a video.
It's very true.
I think when people think about travel for music groups, they think about the end result. We went to a music festival. We played a concert. We went to contest. We won first place. We went to even Grand Nationals. Yeah. And I would challenge you to say, but it's the experiences that are transformative, not the performances.
Right. No, I would agree, and I think for a band like ours, I think we can tell you that something like San Antonio is super regional for Bands of America, meaning that we knew we weren't necessarily competitive with what the marching band scene looks like in Texas, but that was as much about the experience as it was anything else. I think this trip might be a tad different, only because Carnegie Hall is Carnegie Hall, so I think
100%.
I think it's a little different, but I think Scott's right.
If you've been in any rehearsal, Chris, at least from my perspective, I've not been talking about the performance. I've been talking about the lifetime memory, the experience.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, we talk about travel. A lot of groups are going to say, well, we can't afford it. And I would challenge you, if your statement is we can't afford it, that makes it even more important that you do it.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, build it around the experiences. And if the experience is a performance, which ours is, then you still have to talk about it in terms of an experience rather than we're performing.
Literally in the middle of Times Square right now, folks. No joke. We're literally at the intersection of Broadway, 7th, 46.
How long till we get a billboard that's 7 stories tall with the band heads on it?
I don't know. Who wants to sponsor that?
If anybody's here, reach out to us at feedback at bandheadspodcast.com.
But Scott, I like what you said. Because I think that you promoting, even in the rehearsals, promoting more the passion of the experience, I think does help the kids have a better perspective than just worried about the precise accuracy of the note that they're
Correct.
playing, and because they're going to get so hung up on that and being so worried about playing something correctly, yeah, they could be literally in the middle of New York City and the experience is passing them by because they're so paranoid about, how they're going to play something, versus I think that passion will also come out in the way they play that music. So I
And,
really like that approach.
When you think about it, because the audience, even though it's Carnegie Hall, is going to be largely our own parents, so they're going to love the kids no matter what and think it's amazing no matter what. But like I said to the kids in the final rehearsal, and you're going to see this on Monday night, I said, when I walk out, you all stand, you turn face the audience, and I said, pick your chair. And the kids are looking, I said, no, I want you to find a chair in Carnegie Hall, and that's who you're playing to.
Oh,
Don't ever forget
okay.
this moment.
I like that.
You have to take a moment, and you have to absorb what you're doing.
Right.
Otherwise, it'll be over, and you'll have missed the experience. You will have had the performance,
Right.
but you will have missed the experience.
Yeah. Well, speaking of experience, I mean, this, again, we talk about kids a lot, but there are two of us here. And do we want to talk about part of the experience and what this is going to be for you and what your involvement is in this? Because I think that's something a lot of people would like to hear.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
All
So,
right.
for those of you, well, no one here would know, but I am an identical twin. And in 1972, my identical twin passed away. I was 4 years old. It was very rare because being identical twins, if it were environmental, we lived in the same house, we should have both got cancer. And if it were genetic, we were the same gene pool.
Yeah, that's
we
crazy.
should have both got cancer, but we didn't.
Yeah.
So there were national studies done about us.
Insane.
But the
that's
bottom
crazy.
line is, for years I've wanted to commemorate that.
Right.
And finally, when I hit the point in time I could, COVID came along, and it changed the world.
Gotcha.
So I had reached out to my friend Bob Sheldon. If you look him up, he's the #1 wind band composer in the world. He sold over 4 million works. And I commissioned him to do a work for my brother Todd in memoriam called Autumn Elegy.
Okay.
And then when Miles reached out and said they were going to Carnegie Hall, I said, what would you think about doing a world premiere? And I reached out to Bob. He was able to move the commission up a year. And Bob is flying in tomorrow.
Thanks,
and he
Bob.
will actually be present, and I will be conducting Autumn
That's
Elegy.
incredible. So we've talked a couple times about weird instances and how things happen for a reason. I mean, tell me this isn't all some sort of, I don't know, divine fate that it works out that you get to go with your son on his trip to conduct his band. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think that's pretty special.
Well, it is life-changing. And for me, I have to remind myself, this is an experience, Scott.
It is, yeah.
Don't worry about the performance. Don't worry about what people think. Enjoy the fact you're going to be on Carnegie Hall stage with your son, premiering a work with the composer. There are people who live 10 lifetimes and never had that experience.
Yeah.
So even for me, I have to remind myself, it's not about the performance. It's not even about the composition. It's about the experience.
So when it becomes about that and knowing the story behind it, I don't know. Like I stay pretty even keel most of the time, but when something hits me emotionally just right, I'm tough to keep control of my emotions sometimes. I'm not sure how you're going to do that up there on that stage.
I got to be honest with you.
I'm not sure you're going to do that.
It's going to go one of two ways, Chris.
The kids will probably keep you, yeah.
And it's going to be an adrenaline-filled moment that I'm going to be a complete wreck, or it's going to be something where I'm so dialed into that experience that I won't even know that there's an audience there. I don't know how it's going to go. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, my prediction is you're going to get through it probably based on adrenaline, but literally the second it's over, especially when you turn around, I think that's probably when it all hits you.
And that's a great thing to talk about in addition to, your fundraising. But, to have experiences, you can have experiences without traveling. You can commission a work. You can bring in a guest artist. You can set up a recording studio in the band room. You can invite soloists to be a part of your program. And if you say, well, we can't afford a commission, there are consortiums where 10 groups get together and commission a work.
That's fair. That's a good point.
And so, again, it's talking about the experiences associated with travel. I don't think travel is... I believe travel is important just for travel's sake. But I believe when traveling with a group, it's about creating experiences.
Yeah, most definitely. And as we've talked about, I think that's a lot of what they take away from it is just, it's not the end result. It may not be the actual Pearl Harbor parade itself. It may not have been the actual competition or any of that stuff, but
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I think is really interesting, and we have great kids. And we went to the pre-parent meeting, and we went to the parent drop-off, and the kids are all there. And the thing I want you to understand as a band parent, you got to take a little bit of pride in that the questions that are asked by non-band people indicate the level of comfort.
I had a lot of pride in that meeting, that's for sure.
You know, because the band kid's like, yeah, we got this. Yeah, no, we know how to pack. No, itinerary, we're good. No, rules and behaviors, we understand that. No, hotel etiquette, no, we understand. Like, I don't think you understand.
So there's a good example. Hold on. There's a good example from that meeting where, again, we traveled with our choir and our orchestra. So there's 3 large groups. So at one point, they're going through the slideshow and the schedule, and they're talking about, okay, so choir is going to wear this color shirt on this day. And then orchestra, you're going to wear this color shirt to fly that day. So they go through this little process of all their color coding, and somebody kind of looks at Miles and is like, hey, what about the band? And he's just like, just make sure you're wearing clothing when you get to the airport.
Don't be naked. Was his instructions.
So we got this, guys. It's okay. We don't have to color coordinate our shirts.
But you think about it, even if you're just traveling to contest, or you're doing a single overnight to go to an event, your kids are getting comfortable with travel.
Yeah.
And that's something
true. That's huge.
That isn't ubiquitous across orchestra or choir, and it's not that they don't travel, but the level of frequency and the complexity of travel in a band.
Right, and yes, 100%. And let's not. I don't want to take away from where we started this conversation, but let's be honest. It very much is a privilege to be able to do it. Right? We understand that. We're not taking it lightly when we say everybody should take the opportunity to travel with their band and trying to make it sound easy, because it's not. But we know the work that goes into it, but as we're talking about right now, what you get out of it is tenfold the work it took to go into getting the kids here in the first place. So we don't take it lightly. It absolutely is a privilege, but the reward for it is worth more than anything that goes into it. That's for sure.
The other thing, again, I know it's easy to say we can't afford it. I understand, and that's true, or our kids can't do this. So I taught at a very low socioeconomic income school when we did the Rose Bowl parade, and I think I've shared with you before, I fundraised and cut corners. We did the Rose Bowl for $190 a kid.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but the thing was, Chris, I underestimated the experience, and I cut corners I should have never cut to save $10 a kid, $20 a kid. We drove through the night. We were only there 2.5 days. We drove through the night to come home.
I see.
And I'm saying so, and I look back and I realize $100 would have been a difference between what I charged them and what I could have charged them would have been transformative. And I can't speak to other people. My excuse, and it was an excuse, was, these kids can't afford it. And I look back now, even 5 years later, I went, I undersold those kids.
Yeah.
I cut their experience short.
I get what you're saying.
I would challenge you, parents, if we can't afford it, well, then what can you afford? What can you do?
So fair enough, but this also goes into, again, proper planning, and you give it time. And yes, this isn't something that you can do every year per se, but with proper planning, so for instance, we recently did an appearance on the Booster Hub, on the Boosted Volunteer podcast. Well, we were talking about one of the guests that she had, which is Brent Biskip and his group, and when they went to New York, and this is a very large, prominent program with a pretty good budget, right?
Flower Mound.
Yeah, it took Flower Mound, I think, 3 years of planning and fundraising to get their group to New York City to do that parade. So even the largest groups, they know it takes time. It's not an overnight type of thing, but if you put the right planning in place. And on the same weekend that we're in New York City, one of our sister schools in Arizona is in Dublin doing the St. Patrick's Day parade. So shout out to Campo Verde, because you know what I mean? But that shows those band directors, they understand and they value how much those experiences mean to those kids, that they find ways to help make those things happen.
And trust me when I say, even it's now been 26 years since we marched in the Rose Parade. Every New Year's Day, I get probably 25 texts from former students that say, Mr. Lang, remember when?
Yeah.
They're now 45 years old.
Yeah. And I remember hearing, because you guys know that I wasn't a band person myself, so I remember even hearing freshman year, as I'm kind of learning what's happening and getting into this, there were a lot of band parents who, they used to talk about it, again, when they were high school and college. They remember, marching the Macy's Day Parade, back in the day, and they're excited that their kids in band because little things like they get to have experiences that are similar to that. So certainly it never leaves them, and it's something that stays with them. Like we talk about, all of these things have been for the rest of their life.
And then Robin said, I thought this was a really good comment by her in our last podcast. She said, you can always find funds if you're good enough at telling the story.
Oh, okay. That is very good.
I thought that was really cleverly put.
Yeah.
That there are people, large and small, are willing to give in donations large and small if you can tell the story enough.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what the whole point of all of what we do is, right? We try to help people tell that story. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, by the way, guys, again, it'd actually be co-branded. It's going to be on our channel as well. But if you see kind of a weird standout episode from the Booster Hub or the Boosted Volunteer podcast that features us, the Band Dads, we had a great conversation with Robin, and there's so many good things like that came out of that. So check that out as well.
So we're talking about, because I want to hit you with another question, but we talked about, number one, if you can't afford to travel, that's what makes it even more important to travel.
Right.
We talked about, as you travel, it's about the experiences, not about the performance.
Right.
And the performance may be the justification that lets you travel,
yes,
but it's the experience that kids will remember.
Yes.
And then we talked about that the experiences your kids are having because they're becoming good at travel will impact them for the rest of their lives.
Okay.
Now, here's the last question, because we're here traveling band adjacent.
Okay.
Okay, Chris is not a chaperone, an official
That's
chaperone.
True.
I am not an official chaperone.
This
I'm
is
conducting.
true.
You're the media guy.
True.
And we're trying to stay as far away from the word chaperone as humanly possible, right?
Maybe not a responsibility I would be interested in. Correct.
But talk about the experience of traveling adjacent to your daughter. Whether it's the performance on Monday night, whether it's standing in Times Square and they just walk by to go to a Broadway musical. Talk about traveling adjacent.
Well, I think that, so for me, I'm one of those people that I like to have a little freedom in my itinerary. So following, the one thing that you have to be able to be good at when planning a travel for a large group of kids like a band, it has to be very prescribed, right? You have to have a very strict itinerary this time because you just have to keep that large group of kids organized. I'm not somebody that really wants to have to do that minute by minute. I like a little more flexibility. So,
is it because you're a data analyst by trade?
Maybe.
You don't want to live in regions and rules outside of the workspace?
Potentially. But
wait, is your bank nearby?
Actually, there's a huge...
Is your corporate headquarters somewhere nearby?
I can't say. I don't want to give that away. It's funny because I did walk by a building and I was like, oh. Anyway.
Did you get traumatized thinking about work?
Not necessarily, actually. So traveling adjacent is nice. One, because you get the freedom. For a whole lot of things. You get the freedom to stay where you want to stay. You get to travel kind of when you want to travel versus being restricted to certain flight times and all that. But as much as I love my daughter, and she does love me being a part of this, she also needs to experience this with her peers, right? She needs to experience with the band kids. She needs to go through
really good point,
She
Chris.
needs to go through it with those people, not necessarily me. We do family trips. There's a time for stuff with me, but right now this isn't just about me. So I'll pop up, to your point. I'll follow them every now and then. I'll stop in. I'll say hi. I'll get a hug, and we'll just kind of refresh that she's doing okay and all that fun stuff. But right now she's at they're at the Great Gatsby. They're on Broadway, seeing a play with their peers.
My son, to your point, my son texted my wife, because we're staying at a different hotel. Mom, he won't listen to this podcast, so I can say this. Mom, I think my pants are too tight. And my wife said, well, what do you want me to do about that, son?
That's a great question.
Figure it out.
What can she do about that?
But that's the point. And I know it's not a crisis. I'm lost in Times Square. But just the point of, dude, I'm not there with you, so figure it out. If
that's
you have an emergency, I'm adjacent to you.
The resourcefulness, yeah.
But, and he was texting at, whatever time in the morning. He's like, Mom, there's 5 of us in the room. Someone's snoring. Yeah. Figure it out, dude.
This goes back to something I think the band moms talked about, right? And Becky talked about when she was talking about being a senior parent, just how much it has meant to give her child those same experiences. She mentioned when he was a freshman, they went to LA without her. But she found out he survived, and he did okay, and things came out on the other side better than she expected because, again, there's a large group of them. They have to learn that they're going to be adults soon. They need some adaptability.
Now that same kid, fast forward, is auditioning for drum corps.
Correct.
And he's traveling on his own because he's traveled so
she could trust
much.
Him. Yeah, that's a good point.
He knows how to navigate an airport.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He knows how to navigate a subway.
Right.
He knows how to get around in public spaces and places and protect himself.
Yeah.
So we talked about, if you can't afford to travel, that means you should travel.
Yeah.
We talked about, even if you can't afford to travel, then create experiences. It's not about the performance.
Right.
We talked about that it's about the band having experiences that you should feel fortunate that other fine arts organizations don't have.
Right.
And then we talked about if you're able as a parent to travel kid adjacent.
Yeah.
So that we can talk
That's the
about
way to
Times
go.
Square,
Yeah.
even though we weren't in Times Square at the same time as he was.
Yeah, and listen, I don't want to take away from the chaperones, and God bless your chaperones for what you're willing to do and your sacrifice. I personally, it's not something I'm super interested in because of the freedom I like to have, and I will tell you, certainly this New York trip, I'm having a good time, but again, when our group went to Hawaii, there was plenty of examples on why we booked on our own was the right decision. Years later, we still get people going, yeah, you guys did the right thing. So anyway, so don't be afraid, don't be scared to book on your own. It's totally okay if you don't like the itinerary, all those things. But again, yes, God bless you chaperones and the work and the effort that you put in to make sure that those kids are safe and having a good time as well.
Okay, last thing here in Times Square. Talk about what this trip has meant for you, your son, who's traveling adjacent to...
Actually, that's a really good point. You've been traveling adjacent to the band as well. Yeah, so my son Dylan, who's a senior this year, who's no longer a band person, I actually thought at one point I might grab Dylan and talk to him a little bit while we're here. But this, again, just you can't really understand the just injection of culture that you get from traveling to a place like New York City. Again, I take it for granted because I'm from the East Coast, so it was always a couple of hours drive away. But when you're from the desert of Arizona...
For sure.
This is I don't want to say culture shock because I
think it's a good word for it.
It kind of is, right? And there's appreciation for what the city is and everything that it has to offer. But it's funny because I've heard a couple settlements also that I think bring him back to having more appreciation for home a little bit as well. Like they think they live in the desert and it's just rocks and dust, but they've traveled a little bit more now and they can kind of see, hey, the city's nice, but it's a little crowded. There's a lot of people, all that fun stuff. So again, my son who's never gotten to take a trip like this, never seen New York City before. He's 18 years old now technically, but he's about that point this fall. After he graduates high school, he's going to go out to the world on his own.
And he's not banned in his travel.
Correct. And because it is important. It's important to have that experience and give him that as well. And I think he's going to be a more well-rounded person when he steps, back on the ground in Arizona. And when I look forward to releasing him this fall into kind of his own life and what he's going to be doing, it is experiences like this that make me feel a little more comfortable that he's been exposed to different elements that I think mature him and make him a better adult.
Yeah, and it's always, I would end it with, is you do these things not for your son or daughter, you do them for you.
That's true.
Because they're going to be gone.
You don't do it for you. It's going to happen.
They will have had these experiences, whether you're a part of it or not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know. And it's, again, I know it's difficult for everybody. My whole family wasn't able to make the trip. There's just a lot going on, and it is very expensive to travel from the west side of the world to the east. So, but again, that doesn't mean we didn't still find a way, at least for me, to be here, and we could still compensate some of that experience. Plus, listen, I can tell you, Scott. So I've had the real experience, right? From the airport, I took
Did someone pee on your leg?
Oh, I think so. I can't confirm. I didn't see who it was. But
it hasn't been a New York trip unless someone's peed on your leg.
It's possible it happened already. But so from the airport, I got in an overcrowded bus with the bus driver arguing with somebody to getting on a couple sets of trains. One of them so packed that I could barely stand in it, to take the subway in New York. So I've had the real experience, and I will say, and I don't think my wife would disagree with me, I don't think this would have been possible if my whole family were here. So I've had the real on the ground, boots to the ground New York experience since I've been here. And my wife would have been miserable going through that. So
not to one up Chris, but I did the exact opposite, and I brought my entire family, including 3 grandparents who move at a snail's pace through New York, are mobility compromised, and want to stop and take a selfie of everything, including squirrels and pigeons. So
God bless you,
I think you made the right choice, my brother. You made the right choice.
God bless you. God bless you. But hey, we got to have that experience. Like I said, we just went on this tour. We've done some cool stuff so far. We're only in, I guess, technically the first full day. Everybody kind of got here yesterday. You've been here a day ahead.
A day ahead,
yeah. But everybody else was here last night. But that's another maybe good point too, especially if you're traveling adjacent. Coming ahead of time, which many parents says, it's not a bad idea. That way you get settled in. You're good to go. Again, the band's going to travel with the band. They got a flight already. They got a hotel. You can kind of get settled and sort your stuff and figure it out without having to worry about all that craziness as well. So not another bad tip. But anyway.
So we'll be back at you with rehearsal excerpts. We'll likely be able to drop in on maybe a little bit of Carnegie Hall sound check, maybe awesome. A little bit of performance. Chris is pretty clever and sneaky. And we're not done talking to you about travel. But for now, I'm Scott Lang.
Chris Flynn.
And we're the
Band Dads.
You just heard us talk about what it means to travel band adjacent and how that can come with its own pros and cons depending on how involved you want to be. For me, there were actually a couple of unexpected upsides. First, my bad knee decided to flare up on this trip, so I was forced to slow down a bit instead of trying to keep up like I was still a teenager. But honestly, that led to something pretty meaningful. I had the opportunity to spend an afternoon at the 9/11 Memorial Museum on my own, and it turned into one of the most impactful experiences of the entire trip. I rented the audio tour, which, by the way, for $11 is an absolute no-brainer, and ended up spending about 4 hours there. Just taking my time, moving through each exhibit and really absorbing everything, and reflecting on where I was in life as a 21-year-old when those events originally happened. The depth, the perspective, and the emotion, it's something that really sticks with you. It's an experience I will not forget. If you ever find yourself in New York City, I can't recommend it enough. Set aside the time. It's worth it. And now we shift gears. Up next is my conversation with Mr. Jonathan Gott, the orchestra director at Basha High School, who was also on the trip with us. For the most part, his experience looked a lot like ours, right up until it was time to come home. That's when things took a turn. An abrupt flight cancellation left him and his orchestra trying to figure out very quickly how they were going to get everyone back to Arizona. So let's bring in John and let's hear how they handled it. So we are doing an episode around trips and travel. So as a result, I'm sitting down today with a new guest to the podcast, Mr. Jonathan Gott. John or Jonathan? What would you prefer?
John is fine. I'm pretty informal, yeah.
There you go. Sitting down with John Gott, who is the orchestra director here at Basha High School. John was on the trip that Scott and I were just on as well for New York City and Carnegie Hall. The orchestra came along with the band and combined for the symphony orchestra to participate in the concert at Carnegie Hall. And John offers a kind of a unique perspective that Scott and I did not get to have in New York. So we're going to ask him about that a little bit later. So John, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you being a guest today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. First, let's introduce you, meaning that how long have you been an educator? How long have you been a director of high school, I guess, orchestra? And what in the world motivated you to try and teach this elegant art form to a group of ruffian teenagers?
Sure. So I'm 13 years into education. I started teaching at the high school level with Basha 7 years ago.
Okay.
What called me to Basha originally, I did my student teaching here back in 2013. And so I split my time with Mr. Acker and Mr. Patel. And so I kind of knew that culture early on and I loved it here. And when the position posted, I absolutely wanted to be a bear again. So
awesome.
Yeah, threw my hat in and I've been lucky enough to be here for the last 7 years.
Okay. And in terms of the art form itself or orchestra, why did you want to teach this to kids? How did you end up here? Is it something in your youth that motivated you? Did you have a mentor? How did you get here?
Yeah, yes to all of that. I have been lucky enough to always have very supportive parents in my life, and music has always been a part of our life. But when I wasn't at home, I found the most supportive educators of mine or influential adults were my music teachers. And so from an early age, I found, I really enjoy doing this. And I think in middle school, I thought, what if I did this when I'm a grown-up? And so, I know a lot of kids think, I want to be an athlete, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like I knew from a very early age, like I want to be an educator.
That's awesome. I think that's really profound for that age in particular, because that's a really interesting age for kids, I think boys in particular, in their development. So that's a very interesting that you established that at that time. But listen, the main audience for my podcast is ideally parents. So I appreciate that you snuck in the supportive parents note there, because that's super important. That's one of the reasons why we even publish this podcast and have the conversations that we do. So yeah, we're talking about trips and travel in this episode. So do you have any particular policy around trips and travel? Is it annually, a couple times a year, every other year? Like how often do you try and get your group out to participate in some sort of event?
So I try to get my kids performing as much as possible. I think it's great to build rapport around students. I have a music mentor who's always said, you win with people. And I think that especially on large trips, that's where memories happen. That's where you form those friendships. That's where those really silly moments happen and kids connect with one another that they wouldn't otherwise have in the classroom. And so I think it's invaluable to have travel, especially at the high school level. And so I look forward to traveling with my kiddos every year.
Awesome. Okay, great. Now, can you tell us maybe some of the other trips that you've taken previously, maybe any memories that stick out from some of the experiences that you've been able to have with the kids?
Yeah, I mean, even down at the AMS level, you know, we've got kids and we try to do things locally so that they have opportunities to perform, not just for, you know, the home crowd necessarily, but to work with adjudicators around the valley. So doing festivals and going to NAU, going to ASU, that kind of thing, state fair. And then at the high school level, I try to do maybe something out in California every other year, and then like a big trip. And so a couple years ago, we went out to Washington, DC, and we did a tour and performed at the Marine Corps Museum. And I partnered with Perry High School for that trip.
Okay.
It was a big trip out there, first time flying with kids, and it was a great experience. We had one of the students was the great granddaughter of Ira Hayes, who was at the flag planting of Iwo Jima.
Oh, wow.
And so she got like a private tour in the Marine Corps because he was a Marine.
Wow.
In the Marine Corps Museum. And it was such a special moment. But I think the group of seniors this year were sophomores on that trip.
Okay.
And I have a group of high school boys. And when you think, you know, music in high school, in the strings, like that's not as popular, but I've just had this die-hard group of guys, and they really bonded over that trip, and they would take silly pictures like in front of the Supreme Court, and they were posing like the statues.
Okay,
and then
sure.
we would go to the, you know, different monuments, and they would try to, you know, take silly pictures throughout the whole thing. And that was very memorable. And those guys like really, really stuck together and are great friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, just the exposure to those different things and those different bits of culture at this age, just, I don't know, I think it helps round those students out a little bit more maybe than those kids that don't get to have that same experience. So that's absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely phenomenal. I think that you hit on a lot of good points, and I want to go back real quick, just kind of to play the acronym game. John said AMS, so just so people know what AMS is, as hard as this man already has to work to teach orchestra to 9 through 12, we have an accelerated middle school attached to our high school as well. Mm-hmm. So John gets the pleasure of having those additional grade levels that he gets to teach as well. But then again, he kind of gets his own feeder, which is not necessarily a bad thing either.
It's fantastic. Yeah. You form those relationships early, and it's, you know, just continue, and we're growing every year.
There you go. There you go. So specifically, New York City. Mm-hmm. New York City was, to your point, a big trip. It was combined between our band, our orchestra, and our choir. So all 3 groups got to go on this trip, which is an enormous undertaking, let alone the fact that we're going from Phoenix to New York City, which is the equivalent of basically crossing the country with a large group of kids. Mm-hmm. How many kids in orchestra did you take on the trip?
I had 57.
Okay. Yeah. How far in advance do you have to plan something like this? So we went through a group called National Concerts, right? Mm-hmm. That's who we ended up traveling with. But how far in advance does the planning for this start? The conversations, how long does this take to put together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every year I'm always thinking ahead. Hey, what's something that I could do next year? What's something I could do next year? And the New York City bug really bit me as we were coming home from Washington, DC a couple years ago. Yeah. And it was, the kids experienced so much culture, and they had such a great time. What experience could I give to kind of the next wave of kiddos a couple years down the road? Sure. And so talking with Cynthia Ketchpole, our choir director, we were like, hey, what if we did something crazy like New York City? And then we started the conversation with Mr. Denny, and kind of evolved from there.
Nice. Okay. So again, I can't imagine the organization that it took, let alone 60 kids to work, the 3 of you together to work that out, especially when there's probably slightly different, you know, agendas, itineraries, I should say, between the 3 groups, and where you have to be at what time and all that stuff. So kudos to you. And I'm sure that when the time came to get on the plane and start the trip, there was some relief involved.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have to worry about the planning phase anymore.
Yeah, it was, move forward to the adventure part of the trip, which is always a relieving feeling for sure.
There you go. All right, so the adventure part. So a lot of times, we've talked a little bit on our podcast previously about trips, and the emphasis I think for this one is a little bit different, because in the past we've talked about the event or the performance, maybe the competition the reason why we traveled is not usually the highlight per se. It's a lot of what's in between. Mm-hmm. The culmination of this trip was a performance on the stage at Carnegie Hall. So I think the performance has a little more weight than maybe some of the stuff that we've talked about in the past. But I'm going to break it up a little bit. First, talk about what was so important to you, or what were some of you think the best moments about. You mentioned the cultural aspect of getting the kids out of the desert into the urban jungle of New York City. And what they were exposed to, some of the activities they did, and all that stuff.
I really think it's difficult to imagine a person who hasn't heard of Carnegie Hall. And so the sell of this trip to the kids, this is one of the most famous stages in the world. It is the most famous stage in America. So that portion necessarily was pretty easy. Like, that's a big hook, and the kids, they were on board right away for the kids that wanted to do it. And then as we got ready and we started planning and going on the trip, some of those other things, let's explore some of the cultures, the foods, the locations within New York City.
Sure.
So, we got to go to the top of the Rockefeller Center, which I have been to New York City, but I hadn't done that. And that was an incredible experience.
Okay.
I had kids overcoming their fear of heights to, get closer to the edge, to look out over all of New York City. We went to Chinatown. We had authentic New York pizza on the first night that we got in there, and we're standing on the curb watching people walk around Times Square and eating authentic pizza in New York. It was great.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, culturally wise. And hopefully, again, I don't think people necessarily realize, again, I grew up on the East Coast, so not that New York City wasn't a big deal to me, but it was always so accessible. It wasn't as big of a deal because New York is always a couple hours away. You'd hit up New York City at any time if you want to. So again, I don't know if people understand, how big of a deal it is to get a group of kids, again, from this side of the country to New York to have that experience.
Yeah, I think that it's, trying to sell them on this. We're going across the country. Like, some of them haven't been out of Arizona. Some of them have never been on a plane before, Yeah, no, that's a good point. So it's a big deal to, especially some kids are not used to being away from their families. This could have been a first for some of them. And
sure.
I had, those advanced middle school kids. I had a handful of advanced middle school kids on this trip.
Gotcha.
And it was a big eye-opening experience for them. And it was, great opportunity.
Yeah. I got to have some good conversations with my daughter and my son, not only just connecting about the culture stuff, but I think one of the things that, again, maybe is lost on me is, so we all went and we spent some time at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, which Absolutely. I had not been to. That's new from the time that I had last been back. And to think about the fact that, again, I was a 21-year-old when it happened, and that event didn't exist in my kids' timeline, for them to experience it for the first time in the way that, as intimately as this, museum presents this event to the kids, again, I think it opened up a lot of good conversations to help. It's not just something that maybe they read in a textbook or learned in social studies. It's tangible now, right? Here's the actual things. So, again, I don't know if you have any reflection on what that experience was like for those kids.
It was really cool. So I'm going to rewind back to Washington, D.C. As a director. That was an educational trip. We went all throughout the mall, and I was concerned, honestly, when we were doing that, because I wasn't sure that the kids would have the buy-in on the history. Gotcha. And it was so impacting to so many of them, where I really got excited for the 9/11 museum, especially because I know how they handled all of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And we got in there and it opened up some really cool conversations. And, you know, I was in middle school when 9/11 happened, and, you know, the same age as a couple of those kiddos.
That's a good point, yeah.
And to be able to kind of be on their level and talk to them about my experiences, a lot of kids, do you remember this? Where were you when this happened?
Yeah.
You know, what happened afterwards? And it was a really special opportunity that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to have those conversations otherwise.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. That was relatable in that way. But that does bring up the point that was for me just the realization one night. I run into the directors down in the lobby, and I think it was that evening that we had gone to the museum, and we all were kind of talking about it and reflecting, and the realization that I was 20 and these guys are like, I don't know, 10, 12, and I think our assistant director said he was 2 months old or something. And I was like, oh great, that's the realization I needed, that I am that much older than everyone, regardless. So the pinnacle of the trip itself was the concert that we got to perform in Carnegie Hall. I'll say we, not we, but our kids and yourselves got to put on at Carnegie Hall, which, again, I think was a very cool, unique experience because it got to be a standalone experience, meaning that the Basha Symphony Orchestra got to perform on its own as a group, wasn't featured with somebody else. Like, they really got to stand alone and kind of put this concert on. So again, back to preparation. What went into the preparation of, again, preparing your kids to play music on a stage of this level?
Yeah, so I'm gonna rewind back to last summer. I put together, I think, 7 or 8 different programs. Like, what music do we want to do on this stage? And so I just started throwing groupings of music together. Oh, this would be really cool. Hey, let's look at this theme. Oh, maybe we want to do an American theme. Maybe we want to do, this or that. And when we came back, meeting with Mr. Denny and Mr. DeFrancis, we started to kind of whittle down, like, what would really highlight our students. And so then we started looking at rep that would highlight our different strengths within the kids.
Sure.
And we came with this program with American composers, and we felt really good about it. We have great players, and we were able to highlight a lot of those great players, especially in some like the clarinet solo in Rhapsody, and trumpet solos and violin solos. So
No, listen, that's such a smart approach, right? Rather than try and force your kids into a box that you want to fit them in, look at your kids and say, where do you fit?
Yeah.
Right, and tailor that to them. That's incredibly smart. So yeah, John got to conduct the group in Rhapsody in Blue, which is absolutely iconic. So to hear it in New York City on the stage of Carnegie Hall was absolutely phenomenal. I know John just from being an observer of the event, and I got to kind of participate and watch sound check. And as usual, I was taking photos and videos, and I was all over the place, but there's no question I could tell that you very much enjoyed the experience. I have a picture of you. I don't know if you've seen it. I have a picture of you where I think our assistant director's on the stage conducting, and you're just kind of taking the moment, and you throw your head back and your arms are open. You're just like absorbing it. Because not only does it look cool and it's iconic, but again, the sound dynamics, the acoustics in Carnegie Hall were insane.
You hear about Carnegie Hall and everybody knows the name, and that was my first time in the building. Yep. So I've never been to Carnegie Hall before. And I was on stage with the kids. I did the first sound check, and I kind of heard other groups playing as we were coming in. So I knew, hey, I'm going to start my sound check at this spot, and we're going to have a dramatic cutoff, and it's going to ring. And I did that, and we cut off, and the sound just went for seconds. And there were audible gasps from the kiddos. And that was really, really special. It was a cool moment. But then, selfishly, I'm out there and I'm listening to Mr. DeFrancis work with the kiddos. And I got chills. And listening to them play, it was so good. And it was one of those moments where you can't just close your eyes and appreciate the power of music.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. And I think just that a sense of pride, parents, they think their kids are phenomenal at what they do regardless, but to be able to amplify their ability with the appropriate tools like exist in a place like Carnegie Hall truly was next level for me. Even in that sound check, I was like, holy moly, this is our band? We sound like this, right? And it does make me want to petition that maybe we need some work done on our auditorium here at our high school because we could use some improvement. Yeah, and the same thing too. There's a picture of you guys once the set is over, and you know the kids are kind of standing in. Well, let me ask this, because at the end of the set, at the end of the whole thing, you received a standing ovation. Tell me what that felt like. I can't even imagine what that would have felt like, looking out on the crowd and seeing that.
Walking out on the stage for the first time was special. And then, as a performer, like when you get those butterflies, that nervous energy, and you want to use it to your benefit, right. It's one of the really unique things about being a musician. Not a lot of people, maybe they do, but I'm not used to other experiences where you get the butterflies and the nervousness, and then you get to thrive off of that. Gotcha. And so like it was crazy, like trying to live in the moment of all of this energy in the space and the people that are there listening to us, and then walking out on stage and being done with the pieces that I was conducting and looking up and going, oh yeah, like I remember where I am. We've been working all year for these 9 minutes.
Right.
And it was great. And you turn around and you see people appreciating your hard work. And I'm so proud of the kids. And then, being able to support my colleagues who got the same experience, it was surreal walking out there with them and being able to stand there and take a bow. It was a very special moment. I will never forget it.
That's awesome. I love that. And again, I have a great picture of John in that moment with the other directors as the receiving ovation with, again, I don't curse on this podcast. I don't use explosive words, but the biggest S-eating grin on his face because you could tell he's just so overjoyed with the experience that he's having. And I don't blame you. Again, just even as an audience member, it was incredibly overwhelming. But I felt the same just in terms of the adrenaline, meaning that as soon as our kids were done and got off the stage and that adrenaline flushed out of my system, I was just kind of wrecked. I was kind of almost done. I was like tired in a way because it felt like, the momentum of the whole thing. Awesome. Well, it was an incredible experience. And again, I think it's one of those that we would all agree. It took a lot of work. Mm-hmm. It took a lot of money. It took a lot of means to make it happen, but I don't think anybody would tell you that it wasn't worth it. I
Absolutely.
Think it was 100% an opportunity anybody should pursue. Now, I mentioned early on that you had a unique experience on this trip that maybe myself, now granted, Scott and I recorded a little session earlier where we talk about, Scott and I usually like to travel band adjacent because we just get to make our own decisions about travel and things.
That's great. That's great.
Being stuck in an itinerary. But our kids had a very, very early flight home. So we played at Carnegie Hall. The concert ended somewhere around 10:30 at night, and we did a little, dinner afterwards at the Hard Rock. By the way, I forgot to mention that one of the cool features that the kids had an opportunity to also kind of enjoy or celebrate their concert was after the concert, the Hard Rock Cafe is reserved for all the performers that get to be a part of that. So they got to go eat some dinner, but I think the band, because they had an early flight, had something like a 4:15 a.m. call time. Mm-hmm. So listen, that's just unfortunately what you have to do to get home sometimes. But you had a different experience, and this is one of the reasons I thought it would be important to maybe have you on to talk today, because I think one of the things that parents, especially non-experienced parents who travel, probably get worried about is what happens when something goes wrong.
Sure.
And I think in your case, something may have gone wrong. Would you like to share what your experience was? What happened?
Yeah. So like you said, we were able to sleep in, and it's St. Patrick's Day. And we had this let's relax, let's reflect on the incredible experience that we had. Go get some breakfast with your chaperones, do some last minute touristy shopping. We're going to meet back at the hotel at noon, and then we're going to load on the bus, and we're going to go to the airport, and we're going to get on our plane and go home. So everybody goes out and does their thing. We come back. We left all of our luggage upstairs in a rehearsal space. So we went all and got our stuff. I was double checking that everybody had all their belongings. Coming down, elevator doors open. Bing! There stands a chaperone. Hey man, did you see? It's like, did I see what?
Yeah, did you see?
and that's never a good situation, right?
Yeah, probably not.
So he shows me his phone, and lo and behold, flight canceled.
Oh no.
And
not delayed.
Legitimately
canceled.
We have no flight out of New York City.
Boy.
the representative from National Concerts, Heidi, who was working with us, she lives in Florida. So she was like, hey, I'm going to be leaving around 11:30. I'm going to pass you off to another person. She's going to help you get on the bus. You're going to go. It's going to be great. Okay. I was like, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then, okay, now we have a canceled flight and I need to find this new representative that I've never met before.
Interesting.
And I need to reach the owner of the company because I've got a bunch of kids. Mr. Gott, the flight is canceled. What's going on? I can't imagine.
Yeah.
And I had chaperones looking at me. What are we doing? And so first thing.
So what do you do?
Yeah.
What now?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
First things first, month and a half before we left, Mr. Reichel, our principal, came down, super supportive. Love him to death. Hey, I want to meet with you and Mr. Denny, Mr. DeFrancis, Mrs. Catchpole, and let's just talk about the trip. And so I think, when disaster strikes, the best plan is those contingency plans that you make when and thankfully we have a super supportive administrative team that wanted to meet with us and say, let's talk about every aspect of this trip, not just like the stuff that you're planning for, but what do we do if this happens? And what do we do if this happens? And I know that that's always on their mind is like, we have our staff's back.
Gotcha.
And so first thing I did, called administration. Hey, just want to let you know, this is what's going on.
Okay.
I'm about to send a message out to parents to let them know the flight is canceled. I'm going to try to touch base with National Concerts. We're going to get the next steps figured out.
Gotcha.
And so there's a bus waiting outside for us, and I'm talking with the owner of National Concerts, and he's on the phone with his flight person, and he calls me and he says, hey, now it's not a 100% guarantee, but if you can get over to the airport right now, there's a chance that there's a team at Delta that's working for you right now specifically.
Okay.
You get on this, you get to the airport, you go to the desk, they're going to get you on a flight, you're going to get home.
Okay.
Great. Everybody, get on the bus.
Right, here we go. Okay.
We're going to go with this. And administration's like, yep, get on the bus.
Fair enough.
You got to do it,
Yeah.
And so we got on the bus and it was St. Patrick's Day. So it took us probably an hour and a half to get to
from Times Square to JFK.
From Times Square. It was insane traffic and like so much respect for bus drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
So he gets us there safe and we all pile out, we grab our stuff, we go into the lobby and Chaperone and I head in and go to the desk first and I say, hey, from Basha High School, group travel through National Concerts. We're here, we were told there might be a flight that you could get us on. And the worker kind of looks at me and like I'm crazy. And she's like, what are you talking about?
That's not what's going here.
Oh no, that's not what I was expecting to hear at all.
No.
And so, I talked to them and they said, this is something that you have to deal with. Group airfare, desk, you need to talk to them. Great, where are they at? Send me to the desk.
Sure.
We don't have that in the airport. You need to have the person that was working on your airfare call us and set it up.
I see.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the bus had already left.
Okay.
We had mentioned, I sent something through Parent Square to parents. Hey, the flight's been canceled. I'm going to let you know what's going on next.
Yep.
I don't have a next right now. I'm sitting in JFK. So I call administration because, that's the next play, right?
Sure.
So I tell them, here's the facts that I do have right now. And I walk them through everything.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, we got your back. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to call Terra Travel right now. Terra Travel helped. They were our kind of middleman with money to work with National Concerts throughout this trip experience. And so
gotcha.
They were familiar with our group and our group travel. And so the kids were in such high spirits. Like there's these moments, and I even sent them a message once we did end up, spoiler alert, we got home safe.
Spoiler, he's here.
Parents, we got home safe.
Here, yeah.
I sent them a message 11:05 o'clock once we're back to the hotel and I'm sending everybody their flight assignments because we did get flights, where I say there's moments that really show your true colors as a human. And I have never been more proud of my kids than I was in the moment. They were in high spirits. They were supporting one another. You could tell that some kids were feeling uneasy. I know that parents were feeling uneasy.
Sure.
And we sat in a corner of the airport in ticketing, not through or anything, just like people are coming and going, and the kids are in there supporting one another. They're playing games, they're making jokes, they're eating snacks, doing what they can. And we were there for, I think, 5 to 5.5 hours.
Gotcha.
While everything was worked out. And administration got a hold of Terra Travel, and Terra Travel just immediately started going to work. National Concerts were like, hey, we got you a flight and it's going to be on Friday.
Oh.
And I was like,
this is Tuesday. This is
right
Tuesday.
Now.
Folks, by the way, this is Tuesday, St. Patrick's Day, so we're clear,
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Friday.
How am I going to get my kids?
Pay for the hotel?
Yeah, how am I going to get my kids in a safe location for days?
Yeah.
I have to now feed them. I have to keep them entertained for days. Like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And being, you never want to burn bridges. Like, I don't ever want to be a negative person to somebody to be negative. But, I've got these kids that are depending on me.
Absolutely.
And so, it was thank you. We're going to try to pivot right now.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened. So we called administration, they called Terra Travel, they called the district office, and CUSD came through in a huge way. They were like, this is a unique situation that we've never dealt with before.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so we are going to get you a bus because we're stuck in the airport.
Okay.
We're getting you a bus. They're taking you to a hotel.
Okay.
We're going to get you guys all rooms for the night. We're going to feed you.
Okay.
We are going to find a company that can book you flights. And so Terra Travel came through in a huge way, and they were able to get us all on flights on the next day. So we...
so you did end up staying an extra night.
Yeah, we got to the airport around, I want to say 2 to 2:15.
Okay.
We got to the hotel around 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
We are working nonstop, and again, I say it all the time because one of my musical mentors say it. You win with people.
Yeah.
And I just had the most incredible team working with me, and so I can't take credit for the success was this emergency because everybody just understood the role. We got to keep the kids safe. We got to get to a location. We got to feed the kids. And so everybody's working on their own little role.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm just kind of being a silly circus clown, making sure that the kids' spirits are up and they're having a great time.
But that's important. You're not a circus clown. Give yourself some credit. That's not fair. Don't do that.
And so we got all names and information to the new company to book us all tickets for the next day. And we got kids ticketing information, and then I sent all the information to parents. Hey, your student's on this flight, they're going to be in Houston.
Gotcha.
And we were able to get everybody safely home, and it is certainly memorable. Obviously I wouldn't choose for this to happen, but the situation that we got thrown into, it couldn't have gone any better than it did.
Fair enough. Which, listen, in a weird way, we talk about, the experience the kids get and the lessons they learn on these trips. They got a lesson. They got a unique experience that not everybody got to have, and how to handle a crisis in that situation.
Absolutely. I think we said we're rolling with the punches, a handful of times, and they really did. I'm so proud of the kids, and
I love it.
It was an extra adventure that choir and band did not have. And we were stuck in the airport for hours and hours and hours and hours the next day,
Gotcha.
And so just doing silly things, making memories, it just ended up being a really great end to a very chaotic situation.
There you go.
Yeah.
So shout out to Terra Travel and, again, Chandler Unified School District for really coming through and making sure that John and all the kids got home in a timely manner rather than making them wait a few days to catch a flight home. So that's awesome. There's kind of three kind of good takeaways in terms of if you find yourself in a situation like that. One was, I'm gonna be kind of corny here. There's like 3 C's that stand out to me, which is contacts, which is make sure you have the right people that you know how to get a hold of when the crap goes down, right? When the ship goes down, make sure you know who you're getting a hold of. The second one would be communication and constantly staying in touch with those individuals, sharing updates, getting updates, and having a contingency plan, right?
Absolutely.
Not that you can plan for every situation, but having some sort of contingency plan that at least prepares people for if somebody gets that phone call, they have an idea of what to do with it versus, again, somebody trying to say, hey, just hang out for a few days and we'll figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
So those are really key points. One last thing I think I want to throw out there, which is this trip was that big and that important. Your orchestra group, you started, and this is a podcast for parents, you started a booster club.
I did.
Basically as a result of this trip to New York City.
Yes.
And I'm going to guess that it ended up being very important because of all of the experience. So tell me about it, what it was like real quick to kind of start that process and literally get one off the ground and start a booster club from nothing. And then, just some of the important roles that those boosters filled for you in this situation.
Oh my gosh. I truly, at this point in my life, cannot imagine life without an incredible booster program. And shout out to my boosters. They are incredible. At the end of last year, I said, hey, I am doing, or we, sorry, this is not a me thing, this is a we thing.
Sure.
We are doing this incredible trip next year, and I will not be able to do it without your support. And the biggest support that I could have is a booster program. So over the summer, be thinking about it. And so we had our informational night, I think, at the beginning of August or maybe the end of August this year. And again, hey, I don't have a booster program. I could really use a team that will support the kids and help us get this trip and make it a success.
Gotcha.
And I have a small but mighty group of boosters, and band boosters have been very helpful in training them up and helping them. But there were so many let's buy your kids food on this day. Hey, let's do this fundraiser throughout the whole year. Let's do this fundraiser. Hey, this would be a great fund. Anything that they could do to help us raise funds for the trip. And then when we were there, it was like, how can we support you? It looks like your kids need this. Can we go and do this?
That's fantastic.
Could this benefit the kids?
Yeah.
They did jackets for the kids so that they're easily identifiable on the streets of New York, as cold as it was.
Which could be good or bad. Could be good or bad. I'll just with that. No, I saw the jackets were phenomenal.
Yeah,
they were great.
Yeah, and so they just have been so helpful, and I am so blessed to have them step up this year, and I'm looking forward to many years of great leadership and experiences with the boosters helping the kiddos out.
I would guess that you've probably seen a different level of engagement now that you have this structure in place. Would you agree?
Absolutely, 100%. Awesome. Parents, if you're thinking about it, get involved. Your kids will benefit. It helps the directors tremendously, on another level. So even if you're I don't want to be in charge of the whatever, you don't have to do that to be involved in your kids' program. You can do very small roles, and it's still very important. They're not asking me to say this.
No,
okay.
No, you're right.
Just get involved. You won't regret it. You'll make great memories with your kids. It will benefit the program as a whole. It will grow your kids' experience in the program. So
even though Scott's not here today, I'll be his voice to say he usually also reiterates do it for a selfish reason. This time in your kid's life goes very quickly, and to be involved in that way, especially when it comes to performing arts groups like band and orchestra, it's so much more intimate than a lot of other places or clubs or activities within a school. that you really get to do it for yourself, just to feel good and be a part of, this journey with your kids. And you get a lot out of it as well. The whole reason why we started this podcast and the reason why I do a lot of what I do is being inspired by a group of kids who just blew me away. And I wanted to make sure that, we could share that conversation on a broader level. So
that's incredible.
John, I appreciate you sitting down with me this afternoon. Any parting points, any last hits that you'd like to make on the way out, or?
This has been a great experience. Thank you for talking with me. Parents, I recognize that you put an incredible amount of faith in us as directors to watch your kiddos, and thank you for that trust, because things don't always go. They don't always go to plan, and it's still worked out for the best, and we do have these contingency plans in place, and your students really do benefit from these experiences. So thank you for all the trust.
There's no question, man. Those kids are now affected for the rest of their life in the most positive way as a result of that experience. So, All right, John, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. See ya.
Contacts, communication, and contingency. 3 C's, 3 big takeaways from that experience, and 3 things every group should keep in mind when traveling. John, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story. And thank you to all of you for coming along on this special episode. Opportunities like this don't come around often, and I'm really glad we, as the band dads, got to bring you along with us for at least a small part of the journey. I want to close this episode with something truly special. As you heard earlier, Scott had the opportunity to guest conduct at Carnegie Hall during a piece titled Autumn Elegy, written by Robert Sheldon, who was not only present for the concert, but also worked with the students in rehearsal the day before. I know how much this moment meant to Scott. This was a long-time goal of his, and I don't know that he ever imagined the opportunity would come with his own son's band performing the piece, let alone that he would be standing on the podium leading them. As his friend, I can tell you it was incredibly moving to witness. I was proud, I was emotional, I was excited, and honestly, just really happy for Scott and his family to experience this meaningful, full-circle moment. So I'm going to leave you with that. Autumn Elegy, performed at Carnegie Hall by the Basha Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Scott Lang. Thanks for joining me, everyone. We'll see you next time. Band Dads are a proud partner of Booster Hub. Simplify your Booster Club's management with Booster Hub's all-in-one tools. Find out more and get your free trial started by visiting boosterhub.com. The Band Dads podcast is a 5 Deuce Media production. For more information, please visit 5deucemedia.com. For more information on Scott Lang leadership and solutions for music education, please visit scottlang.net.